Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Good morning and welcome to Torah Learning for today. It is Hol HaMoed Pesach, which means it's one of the intermediary days of the Passover holiday, and it happens to be Shabbat. But because it's Passover, we don't read the typical portion we would be in the book of Vayikra, of Leviticus. But instead we go back to Exodus and we read from Parshat Ki Tisa, chapter 33, verse 12 through chapter 34, verse 26. So I'd like to begin this morning with you. If you want to follow along, I'm going to just read the first 5 to 10 verses of chapter 33, beginning with verse 12 in our Torah portion this morning. And so we are again in Ki Tisa in Exodus, beginning with Moses said to Adonai. Please join me in the blessing over Torah. Baruch atah Adonai, Baruch hu atah Adonai hamvorach. Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah. Verse 12. Vayomer Moshe el Adonai Rei ata omer Eli ha'al et ha'am hazeh ve'ata lo hodatani et asher tishlach imi ve'ata amarta yadaticha v'shem v'gam matzata chen be'enai. Moses said to Adonai, "See, you say to me, lead this people forward, but you have not made known to me whom you will send with me. Further, you have said, I've singled you out by name, and you have indeed gained my favor." Verse 13. Ve'ata imna matzati chen be'einecha hodi'eni na et derachecha ve'eda'acha lama'an emsachein be'einecha ur'ei ki amcha hagoy hazeh. Now, if I've truly gained your favor, pray let me know your ways, that I may know you and continue in your favor. Consider too that this nation is your people. Verse 14. Vayomer penei yelechu v'hanichoti lach. And God said, I will go in the lead and I will lighten your burden. 15. Vayomer elav imein panecha holchim al ta'alenu mizeh. And he replied, unless you go in the lead, do not make us leave this place. Verse 16. Uvame yivada efo ki matzati chen be'einecha ani ve'amecha halo belechtecha imanu v'niflinu ani v'amcha mikol ha'am asher al panei ha'adamah. For how shall it be known, Moses says, that your people have gained your favor unless you go with us, so that we may be distinguished, your people and I, from every people on the face of the earth. It's a cliffhanger. I'm not going to leave you waiting. Let's see what happens next. All right, verse 17. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe gam et hadavar hazeh asher dibarta e'eseh ki matzata chen be'enai ve'eda'acha b'shem. Okay, continuing with verse 17. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe gam et hadavar hazeh asher dibarta e'eseh ki matzata chen be'enai va'eda'acha b'shem. And God says to Moses, I will also do this thing that you have asked me, but because you have truly gained my favor, and so I have singled you out by name. Vayomar Har'eni na et kevodecha. And Moses says, oh, please let me behold your presence. Vayomer ani a'avir kol tuvi al panecha v'karati v'shem Adonai lefanecha v'chanoti et asher achon v'richamti et asher arahem. And God answers Moses by saying, I will make all my goodness pass before you, and I will proclaim before you the name eternal, and the grace that I grant, and the compassion that I show, continuing. All right, we're going to stop there. We'll bless after the reading. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. So that is just the first verses 12 through 19 of Exodus 33. And I want to share the first of a couple of interpretations for you relevant to the fact that it's not just Parshat Ki Tisa that we are reading, but it happens to be also in the time of Passover. And this interpretation, this drush, comes from Rabbi Nama Kelman, who is a colleague in the land of Israel. She lives and works in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem. And she, in reflecting on this parsha, notes that only in Israel are there kosher for Passover buns at McDonald's. And only in Israel do non-kosher restaurants offer you a choice of bread and or matzah. And only in Israel do we have shelves overflowing with every possible variation of the full range of kosher for Passover foods. From those who eat legumes to those who will not put matzah meal in anything. It's on this holiday, she writes, in Israel, that frankly we obsess about food. Considering how humble the biblical Passover matzah was in origin, today we now have a wide variety of egg, spelt, whole wheat, and so on, for every possible diet and taste. Of course, from the inception of the Exodus, our ancestors were not going to spend 8 days eating dry matzah. They left Egypt taking the Paschal lamb sacrifice too. And so when we say Feast of Freedom, we mean it. We spend 8 days eating feasts. Passover is a holiday on which Israel really shuts down, and the spring holiday is taken full advantage of because everyone is out sightseeing, picnicking, visiting family, schlepping their matzah-based delicacies with them. Israelis live and breathe and eat the joys of their redemption from Egypt. Flowers are in full bloom in this season. The winter rains are over. It is deliciously green. Everywhere you look, hope springs eternal. Not unlike here in Nashville right now. Most Israeli Jewish families sit down together for a Passover Seder. Surveys demonstrate every year that this holiday is the most observed. Secular Israelis who can now read and understand Hebrew have little patience for the whole traditional Haggadah, so they skim, hit the key parts, get to the meal, and then skip to a few final songs. And they eat the entire menu of ritual foods. They embody the holiday, consuming and imbibing. Whether they are conscious of it or not, this nationwide holiday has multiple meanings. For centuries, it has served not only as our festival of national liberation, but also as a reenactment and rehearsal of our national independence. We have completed the Exodus in our return to the homeland. Now, most Israelis observe this holiday at home or outdoors in nature. Only those who are religious, from Orthodox to Reform, go to synagogue, and that's to sing Hallel, the Psalms of praise, and to enjoy special scriptural readings like the one I just shared. On Shabbat, Chol HaMoed Pesach, which is this Shabbat, we have special dramatic readings from our Torah, and particularly for our Haftorah, which we'll get to a little bit later this morning. And that is from the book of Ezekiel, chapter 37, which shares this vision of dry bones coming to life. So what does this vision have to do with Passover, our festival of freedom, our deliverance from slavery? Well, the Haftorah commentary that we use in the Reform movement, written by Rabbi Gunther Plaut, offers this opinion on the connection between Passover and this prophecy of Ezekiel and the dry bones. The connection of the Shabbat of Pesach and the main body of the Haftorah lies in the theme of Israel's deliverance. In the Torah, it is delivered from slavery, and in the Haftorah, it is delivered from death. The story of Passover is the celebration of the Exodus from Egypt. But the story is incomplete without this messianic vision. Ezekiel preaches to his people who are exiled in Israel, or they're exiled from Israel, after many have been killed in battle. They are given a vision of the return of the dead to Jerusalem and a restored homeland. It's really the original Mechayim Eitim, the original resurrection, if you will. This is an extraordinary vision because it becomes the basis for later Jewish understandings of the resurrection of the dead. Are there other possible connections to Passover, you might ask? Well, one interesting connection is that we end our Seder with the song Hadgadyah, the so-called children's song, that follows the chain of violence and death from one goat to God striking the angel of death. By this time in the Seder, most of us are really too busy, too tired, and really too tipsy to pay full attention to the incredible theological message masquerading as child's play, sung in Aramaic, because the message is of ultimate redemption and it echoes in the Seder and is fully disclosed in Ezekiel's prophecy of hope and restoration. Was Ezekiel's prophecy meant to be real or a metaphor? Is it really a description of physical resurrection or spiritual resurrection? And how do we moderns, and particularly we Reform Jews, find meaning in this? The prayers for the resurrection of the dead were among the first to be excised from the classical Reform prayer books. But our more recent prayer book, Mishkan Tefillah, the blue one that we use here at Micah, has put the prayer back as an alternative reading. Could it be that the last century, with its extraordinary events, reminded us that resurrection is possible? Think about all the times the Jewish people have resurrected themselves. In our Haftorah, Ezekiel sends a shiver down your spine when he writes, "Our bones are dried up, our hope is lost, we are cut off." In 1876, Naphtali Herz Imber wrote this poem, literally writing, "Will the revival of the Jewish people in their homeland, in defiance and deference to the words of Ezekiel, happen?" This poem became Hatikvah, the words of Israel's national anthem, and it's testimony to the story of the revival of Hebrew language and poetry, as well as the rebirth of a nation. The rebirth of Hebrew language, poetry, and prose represent what is probably the most powerful cultural resurrection of the 20th century. Ezekiel was right. "I will put my breath into you, and you shall live, and I will place you in your own land." These words that were written sometime in the 6th century BCE resonated in the hearts and minds and pens of our early Zionist dreamers. Recited century after century, this Haftorah has changed from a wistful prayer to a clarion call to action. Imber, author of the poem that served as the foundation for Hatikvah, died destitute in America in 1909. But his words resurrect his spirit, his ruach, every time our anthem is sung. And Ezekiel was revived and made popular in a famous rock song in the late 1960s. You may know Ya Ya Yehezkel, only in Israel, where tikva is never lost. I think it's also interesting to note that Passover is really about two themes. And these themes are disputed in a machloket, in an argument that comes to us from the Talmud. And the argument is between Rabbi Yehoshua and Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yehoshua says, Passover and the Seder is all about redemption. It is a story of hope through redemption from slavery to freedom. And that in every generation, our people have gone through some kind of exodus. not just an exodus from Egypt, but all sorts of things that we've survived. Pogroms, the Shoah, banishment from our land, from the lands we were living in, into exile, all sorts of marginalization that we've experienced and continue to experience as Jews. And so in every generation, we need to continue to look for hope. And the story of the Exodus, the story of the Seder, of Passover, is our story par excellence that reminds us hope is always there for us. And it is up to us, it is our agency to take hold of that hope and never to let it go. I'm reminded of the Jews in the Warsaw Ghetto who stole flour to create matzah. Knowing that they were likely to die, they still made the bread of affliction and they still celebrated Seder because they still held on to hope. That's amazing. But back to our Talmud. Rabbi Eliezer says, hold on, it's not about redemption. Seder is the one night of the year in which God reminds us that we are completely protected from harm. Much like the Hashkivenu prayer that we recite in the evening and at Shabbat services on Friday night, God envelops us on Seder evening in a Sukkot Shlomecha and guards over us and watches us and protects us. And boy, are there lots of things to be afraid of these days. I'm afraid when I go to the grocery store. I'm afraid my parents or my in-laws might get sick and I won't be able to take care of them. I'm afraid I won't be there for my congregants, for you in the ways that you need. I'm afraid that we won't make the right choices as a Jewish community and someone's life will be lost. I have all sorts of fears. And God is meant to release us from those fears on the night of Seder, according to Rabbi Eliezer. And I would say that both Rabbi Yehoshua and Rabbi Eliezer in this case are right. This is in fact a holy day about redemption and hope. And it is also a time for us to suspend our fears and to think about where we come from and where we want to be going. Where, upon whose shoulders do we stand, and what is the agency that we grab hold of as we go forward? Join me if you'd like in the blessing before reading Haftorah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar b'nviim tovim, v'ratza b'divrehem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher b'Torah, uv'Moshe avdo, uv'Yisrael amo, uv'nvi'ei ha'emet v'tzedek. So picking up from Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 4. Vayomer Elai hinave al ha'atzmaot ha'ele ve'amarta alehem ha'atzmaot ha'yeveshut Shim'u devar Adonai. Then God said to me, prophesy to these bones and say to them, you dry bones, hear the word of the Eternal. Ko amar Adonai, Adonai, la'atzamot ha'ele, hine ani, mevi vachem, ruach Vichitem. Thus says the eternal God to these bones, behold, I will cause breath to enter you, and you shall live. Vanatati alechem gidim, v'ha'aleti alechem basar, v'karamti alechem od. Vanatati vachem, ruach vahitem, vidatem ki ani Adonai. I will put sinews on you and cover you with flesh and spread skin over you. I will put breath into you and you shall live. Then you shall know that I am the Eternal. Vayiveti ka'asher tzuveti, Vayhi kol kahinavi vahine ra'ash vatikrevu atzamot etzem el atzmo. I prophesied as I had been commanded, and as I prophesied, there was a loud noise, a sound, and the bones came together, bone to matching bone. V'ra'iti v'hine alehem gidim uvasar Allah v'yikram alehem od milmala v'ruach ein bahem. I looked and saw sinews and flesh and skin spread over them from above, but there was no breath in them. Vayomer Elai Hinave El Haruach Hinave Ben Adam Ve'amarta El Haruach Ko Amar Adonai Adonai Me'ar Baharuchot Boi Haruach Ufchi Baharugim Ha'ele Vayichu. Then God said to me, mortal, prophesy to the breath, O prophecy, and say to the breath, thus says the eternal God, come breath from the four quarters and breathe into these slain bodies that they may live again. Please join me in blessing following the reading. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam tzur kol haolamim tzadik bechol hadorot ha'el haneman ha'omer ve'oseh hamdaber kayem shekol devarav emet v'tzedek al hakol ve'al havodah al haTorah ve'al havodah ve'al hanevim ve'al yom hashabbat hazeh ve'al yom Hag hamatzot hazeh shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu likdusha v'limnucha l'sason v'lisimcha lechavod ultifaret al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach umvorchim otach yitbarach shimcha b'fi kol chai tamid le'olam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat v'Yisrael hazmanim. So, on the Shabbat that falls during Passover, which is this Shabbat, we read the prophecy of the dry bones. Let me move you over here. And the prophet Ezekiel experiences an unusual vision and declares an unusual prophecy. God walks him to a valley that is filled with bones and instructs him to declare to these bones, I will cause breath to enter you, and you shall live again. And Ezekiel complies, and the bones come together, bone to matching bone, the verse says. And there were sinews on them, and flesh had grown, and the skin had formed over them. But the reconstructed body still did not have breath. So God instructs Ezekiel to call to the Ruach, to the breath, to the spirit, saying, come, O Ruach, from the four winds, and breathe into these slain that they may live again. That is a very dramatic prophecy. The wind complies, and the Ruach entered them, and they came to life and stood up on their feet, a vast multitude. Let's see if I can get this here. Now, let's put you down. God explains the vision to the perplexed Ezekiel, saying that the dry bones are the whole house of Israel, who are now in a state of confusion and despair, but they shall be revived in the future. This is almost the only place that the Hebrew Bible talks about resurrection. Almost the only place. And even here, it's really more of a vision, of a prophecy. So why do we read this prophecy of dry bones on Passover? Well, I think we've talked about this idea of the Exodus being a moment of resurrection, of rebirth, of coming back to life. And if the story of Passover speaks of God's mighty hand, this prophetic reading speaks about God's Spirit. And indeed, for us to be a free people, Passover, this festival of freedom, requires more of us than just military or physical strength. Maybe this is why this prophecy is recited annually in the central memorial prayer for the Holocaust at Yad Vashem in Jerusalem and in so many other memorial services. Because it reminds us that sometimes heroism is givurat haruach, heroism of the spirit. So from this point on, from Passover to Shmini Atzeret, which is the concluding day of the Sukkot period, rain is not considered a blessing and the crops need the sun's warmth. So in Israel, that's where we are agriculturally. And humorous stories depict of Jews in Europe going to the synagogue on Passover to recite the prayer for the dew marking the end of winter while floundering in deep snow. And this prayer, as well as the prayer for rain that's recited on Shmini Atzeret, envisions life in the land of Israel. So even if you, your ancestors, and your descendants are not physically there, we're always virtually in the land of Israel vis-a-vis this prayer. And according to this view, religiously, it is the weather in the land of Israel that matters and not the weather in the land where the worshiper lives. So it doesn't matter that we live here in Nashville, it matters what's happening weather-wise in Israel. And needless to say, this view was at one time pretty foreign to us as Reformed Jews, but it's become something that is more important to us now that we pray for. In the last century, we've seen a gradual growing interest in the sense of responsibility on the part of us as Reformed Jews towards Israel. And so this shift is also reflected in our prayers, in our liturgy. Among many other changes relating to Zion and Israel, we have a daily acknowledgement of Mashiv HaRuach Umarid HaGashem in the winter and Morid Hatal in the summer. So praying for rain in the winter and praying for dew in the summer. And reciting these words gives us an opportunity to reflect on the earth, our world, and also gives us a moment of connection to the land of Israel. So the liturgical shift that caused the inclusion of the ancient words relating to the seasons is in fact a sign of the vitality of Reformed Judaism, and matters that were once deemed irrelevant and even disturbing in the past, like this idea of resurrection with Ezekiel and the dry bones, they're now revisited and re-examined and sometimes reinstituted in our worship. So this is perhaps also a manifestation of Ezekiel's prophecy on the vitality of matter that may seem dead, right? Like the earth, but maybe worthy of revival and resurrection. So our spirit, much like the spirit of the earth, receives a resurrection, new life breathed into it annually. And Passover is a time in which we remember that. So I would say there are all kinds of hope that we hold out for and pray for and anticipate at this season. Some of it is a physical hope. Some of it is, in fact, a spiritual hope. And I would say in the time of a Passover of pandemic, we have a lot of agency, that we don't just have to wait for hope to make it so that we can get through this time. We know there's lots of things we can do, like staying home, only visiting essential business and going to the grocery when need be, and washing our hands as often as possible, thereby reducing the risk to our own health and the risk to the health of others we might come in contact with, and allowing our healthcare system to provide the resources necessary to those who do get sick when they do and need it the most. So, Shabbat Shalom. I hope you enjoyed a little bit of our Torah from Parshat Ki Tisa this morning and some of the Haftorah from Ezekiel. May it be a revived, hopeful, resurrected Pesach for all of us. Shabbat Shalom.